Like and subscribe now, or you're gonna have bad luck this week. Yeah.
The relationship between a man and animal has existed for as long as history goes. However, it doesn't really matter how much training is provided to these exotic animals, as their true behavior is bound to show up at some point. There have been some horrific cases of animals for reasons unknown, from an owner being that was like a son to him. Here are 10 pets who ate their owners. Number 10, Andre Lumboga. The bond between man and dogs is something that needs no explanation. Many real-life stories depict how pure the bond is, but here's an incident about dogs which is completely opposite to the ones you've heard. Andre Lumboga, a man from Indonesia, went on a holiday to leave his 9 dogs unfed for 2 weeks. As Andre returned, his dogs were already starving and seemed completely happy, not because he had returned, but for the reason that they got Andre. The dogs that had no food or water for 2 weeks. Andre's body was discovered after a neighborhood guard noticed luggage outside the man's home, even days after he had returned home. The guard approached the house and noticed an police arrived. They discovered Lumboga. Number 9, Ronald Huff. Ronald Huff's death still remains one of the most terrifying and bizarre instances of a human being. Trinidad Navarro, a county sheriff, told Animal Planet that they received a call to check on the welfare of Ronald Huff. They knocked on the door, but unfortunately there was no answer. They could hear things moving around inside when they were trying to gain entry. When they finally got into the apartment, the largest of the monitor lizards actually the neck, so we know he was chewing on. To this day, no one knows if the lizard or if the car salesman died naturally and then was simply devoured by the free-roaming monsters. That's a pretty horrific story. Number 8, eaten by a pet hamster. Hamsters are generally harmless pets. No one would even think of a hamster when considering animals who could kill their owners. But this story shows that thinking might just be flawed. In this strange incident, this, of course, is a sad occurrence, but it isn't too uncommon. However, what made the incident strange was the fact that her pet. Now again, this isn't too strange if you consider that she may have died of a heart attack. If that had happened, it wouldn't be too shocking to discover that her. What made this story extremely strange is the fact that there were strange markings on her face. After careful investigation, investigators discovered that the woman owned a free-range golden hamster. Upon further investigation, a more gruesome sight was found. Right inside one of the drawers inside the house, muscle tissue. That's some terrible stuff. Number 7, Kellyanne Waltz. Most of the pets on this list seem like the kind of creatures that only very brave or stupid people would keep, but keeping a 350-pound black bear seems like you're asking for trouble. Kellyanne Waltz, a 37-year-old from Pennsylvania, learned the hard way in 2009 when she made a mistake and paid with her life. She and her husband were collectors of exotic pets, and her husband worked as an exotic pet dealer. In 2007, they reported that they kept a lion, cougar, jaguar, tiger, black bear, leopard, and 2 servals on site, each of which were supposed to be kept in adequate enclosures. One unfortunate day, Kellyanne had gone into the 15 by 15 foot steel cage to clean it. Rather than moving the bear to another location, she simply threw a shovel full of dog food onto the side to distract it while she cleaned the other side. The bear, seeing a tastier option, her kids sadly saw what happened and called a neighbor to help them save their mom. But it was too late, unfortunately. Number 6, Charla Nash. We've said it over and over again, chimps and other primates don't make good pets. And if you ever want to own one, just go and get a child. You're that close! Charla Nash visited her friend Sandra Harold in 2009, who had just gotten a pet chimp. The chimpanzee named Travis was well known after appearing in advertisements for Coca-Cola and Old Navy. Nash didn't know the visit was going to change her life forever. When they arrived at her home in Connecticut, Nash sued the state of Connecticut for $150 million. She received $4 million in the first 4 years. Number 5. Mark Vogel. Mark Vogel was a 30-year-old from Germany who had the misfortune of owning an army of exotic pet spiders, snakes, termites, and a gecko. Mark often kept these pets in a cage because he understood how dangerous they were. But of all his pets, one was especially dangerous, and Mark knew it. However, sometimes even foreknowledge cannot help you. One day, the inevitable occurred, and the pet that Mark was the most scared of, a black widow spider, escaped the cage. And from then onwards, it was game over. And these muscle cramps can paralyze one to the stage where they cannot call for help. It seems this was precisely what happened to Mark. Soon after, all his pets escaped from the cage he put them in, and they decided to 15 days. Number 4. Finger-eating ferret. Many families have two beings that should not exist in the same place: a ferret and a baby. They don't know this, but ferrets are dangerous animals, and babies are especially defenseless. While many families think that ferrets are agile and cute, they fail to realize that ferrets have other properties too. For one, they have a sharp pair of piranha-like teeth and have a taste for flesh. They're basically like little furry vampires. One day, a Missouri family was awakened by the crying of their child. They guessed only two things. 1, he might be hungry, or 2, his diaper might need changing. Never in their wildest imagination would they have guessed what they saw when they walked into the nursery. Thankfully, they were able to take the baby to the hospital for Amazingly, that's not the only example we know of where ferrets tried to kill a baby. In another example, Number 3. Cynthia Lee Gamble. Cynthia Lee Gamble's friends described her as fearless, which seems understandable considering she kept a 500-pound Bengal tiger in a cage at her home in Minnesota. She was an animal expert and lover, having been involved in several movies and documentaries, wolverines, coyotes, and foxes. Despite all the expertise, though, she was brutally mauled by one of her tigers in Enclosures typically have different cages that are separated by a pass-through area with heavy drop doors. To enter, tigers would be coaxed into their cage, the doors would be lowered, and it would be safe for a human to enter and clean or feed. When they found Cynthia's body, one of the doors remained perilously open, leaving her open, which is ultimately what had happened. And a warning to those who become a little too complacent living with dangerous animals. Number 2. James Little. A little-known fact about canines in the wild. It's something James Little, a 61-year-old from Oregon, probably wishes he had known before he went to sleep one afternoon. You see, James was diabetic, and as the disease affects the extremities and makes them numb, it's thought that his pet Sheba mistook this for danger and called the emergency services, was taken to the hospital, and luckily was soon fine enough to return home. On the other hand, hardly surprising considering James would otherwise have been scared to go to sleep for Number 1. Marius Els. Africa named Marius Els, who was a hippo named Humphrey, grew too big for the people who adopted it and was bought by Els at the age of 5 months, becoming his pet on his 400-acre farm. Els was also photographed riding on the 5-year-old hippo's back. A few years ago, Els had said that Humphrey was like a son to him. This tragic incident occurred in November of 2011. The body of Els was found in a river with several Els' body was found submerged in the river where he had rescued the hippo from a flood 6 years ago. What do you think about this list? And do you have a similar story to tell? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.